The next cast on we're going to do is the invisible circular cast on. I like this cast on a lot. I only learned it recently and I find it really useful, and I like it because it closes in nice and tight. It has elements of the Emily Ocker cast on, but it also has elements of the provisional waste yarn cast on. So because I'm so familiar with the provisional waste yarn cast on, I find this one a very comfortable one for me to do. We're going to begin the same way we did with the Emily Ocker cast on, and the same way I begin most of my knitting projects where I require a slip knot. We're going to take up the tail end of the yarn, we're going to hold it with the pinky finger, and we're going to wrap the yarn twice around the first two fingers, just as we did before. And we're going to make the little cross at the index finger. That's kind of important. I'm not sure why, but I've done this way for decades now. So again, we take the needle tip, we go under the first strand, over the second strand, and then we draw up a loop. We don't let go of the loop because we need this to continue on. Now I'm going to take my yarn, I'm going to change my hold into the same one that I would use actually for crocheting. It's also the same one I use for my waste yarn provisional cast on. I have one stitch on my needle, and the next step in the provisional waste yarn cast on is to just hook the stitch. Now I'm going to go down into the large loop and go around the strand of the ball yarn and draw up my next loop, and then complete the motion and put the fourth stitch on the hook. We do this a couple more times. We go down through the big loop, up around, and grab the strand of yarn from the ball, and then we hook another stitch from the ball. We go down through the big loop, grab up the loop, and hook the last one. Now, I've read that you can only do this cast on with an odd number of stitches, but I have found that if you take and twist the tail end of the yarn firmly around that last even numbered stitch, you can successfully use this cast on. So again, this cast on tightens up by just giving a firm tug on the tail. And now I've got my 8 stitches and I'm ready to start dividing them off onto 4 needles. The difference between this cast on and the Emily Ocker cast on is that the last 2 stitches are already on a needle and you don't have to worry about it. You just need to form your square, turn your work so that the ball yarn is coming off of that 4th needle. Maintain the twist of your tail yarn around. And then you can start. This loop here is part of the loop from that was underneath the 8 stitches. So we're not going to worry about that yet. We can tighten it up and I can show you at the end how close this cast on will close in. So we're going to knit the first round. And you can see the cross here, the strand crossing over the stitch, that's actually the tail yarn, and it's twisted around that first stitch. So now I can take and I can pull that loop all the way in, and I can set my needles out into formation. And I have a nice closed in cast on. Just like that. So we're going to start knitting the second round. And now we can see how the center of this piece compares. And I can give that tail another tug, and you can see how nice and tidy that cast on is. And finally, here's just a little shot of the Emily Ocker cast on and the Invisible Circular cast on. You can see that they have some similarities and that they both create a nice neat finish. Although I have to say the Invisible Circular cast on is a little more forgiving, if you will, than the Emily Ocker cast on because of the extra loops you create in the Emily Ocker cast on.